So, little example here. We're going to kind of look at a couple little examples. But I just want you to think, have you ever had a hope that was a really big hope? Like a really big hope that you've been hoping for a long time. Something you've been waiting on. And I just want to kind of ruminate on that as we go through here. And I just want you to see where these things are connected. But we're going to look at the story of Abraham and Sarah really quick. And long story, Abraham and Sarah were married for many, many, many years. And Sarah was barren. They weren't able to have children. And God asked a lot of them in many ways. He asked them to leave their homeland. He asked them to move. He asked them to do all these different things. And because they were so faithful to it, the Lord made a promise to Abraham and Sarah that they were going to be, essentially, that their descendants would be so many that they would outnumber the stars. The Lord told them to look up in the sky and count it. That's how many kids you're going to have. Now, when he told them this, Abraham was 75 years old. And he's going, hold the phone. I'm 75, and I don't have kids. My wife cannot have kids. And yet, God is promising me that I will have descendants. How does that work? Now, I can imagine when they were younger that they would have this hope that they would have children. Because when they lived, it wasn't a good thing to not have kids. You didn't have anybody to take your inheritance. And Abraham and Sarah were very wealthy. And they had nobody to carry on their name. Nobody had to carry on the family. It was a very kind of desperate and weird situation for them. And so I can only imagine the hope that they had in their hearts and that longing that they had in their hearts for children. And for God to come to them at the ripe old age of 75 and say, you're going to have kids. I can only imagine what that would feel like at that point. And the whole point of it is when the Lord actually did come to them and reveal to them the timing of this birth, both of them laughed at God. They both laughed at God. He said, this is what's going to happen. You're going to have a son, and it's going to be Isaac. And they laughed. And the Lord goes, why are you laughing? Like, why are you laughing at this? And they're like, Sarah's like, you know how old I am, right? Because at this point, she's 99. So she's 99 years old, and he's going, you're going to have a baby. No, I'm not. And that's where we begin this. And so we're looking at moral certainty. Now, if we look at marriage and relationships in general, they're not scientifically based. And they're definitely not scientifically certain. I can't give you a specific calculation that makes a marriage work. I can't give you a logical explanation for it. I can't sit there and go say, this person is perfect for this person, and here's all the scientific-based knowledge for that. Here's all my calculations for it. They'll be perfect. Because we are humans, and God gave us free will. So we can, on paper, we can say that relationships and marriages could be perfect. But there's a free will in there, and there's a choice. Now, biblical certainty is based on human will as well as God's promises. And they're based on a person's desire to keep an oath and a vow. And the choice that we make in it. And looking at the story of Abraham and Sarah, there's a lot of reasons that Abraham could have left Sarah. Found a new wife, got something different. Many years on in their life that he could have done that. But the person that Abraham was faithful to was not only to Sarah, but to God himself. So Abraham's will as a human being and what he believed helped make that relationship work. The other part of that is who he placed his trust and faith in, which is God himself. Now, the reason we know who God is and how God works is because of his character and the promises that he makes and the way that those things are fulfilled. So the first scripture we're going to look at here is Hebrews 6, and we're look at verses 13 and 15. And this is when God made the promise to Abraham. And it's looking at this situation. I'm sorry, it's not when it happened, but it's looking at the situation. And it says, "For when God made a promise to Abraham, he swore an oath by himself." So God swore to God. I love that. There's only one person in the world who can say they swear on themselves, and that's God. By himself, since he had no one greater by whom to swear. He said, "Surely I will bless you, and surely I will multiply you." And so, having patiently waited, he realized the promise, the miraculous birth of Isaac, as a pledge of what God said was to come. Now, I'm reading out of the Amplified for this because I really like how it expands on hope and the feelings of this. So there is a certainty in God's promise. When God makes an oath and he swears against himself, there's only one place that this can go. And God is faithful to keep his promises. We see in Joshua 21, it says, "Not one word of all the good promises that the Lord has made to the house of Israel have failed. All have come to pass." Now, I could literally continue to go on and on and on and on because this book is filled with promises that are kept over and over again. So I'm just going to give you little bits of and pieces of it, of the promises that gives us the character of God and who we're hoping on. The thing is, God could have washed his hands of his relationship of us a long time ago. God could have said, "I gave you free will. I've offered you help multiple times. I'm done." And he could have left it. But unfortunately, that's not who God is. That's not his will. That's not what his character is like. He keeps coming back to us. I still wonder myself why he keeps coming back to me over and over and over again. But he does. And I'm extremely thankful for that. And the next part of this perseverance piece that we have is once we have the character of God, we know that the promises that he's made, sometimes we have to persevere with them. In Hebrews 6:15, it says, "So having waited patiently, he realized the promise in the miraculous birth of Isaac as a pledge of what was to come from God." Now, as I said, when Abraham and Sarah were first told that they were going to have a child, they were 75. Abraham was 75. Now, when he was told that, God said, "I'll come back to you in a year and tell you a little bit more about it, but you're going to have a kid." Okay? So they're waiting, right? I would sit there and go, if God said I was going to have a kid, I would expect rather soon. But Sarah and Abraham waited 25 years before they had Isaac. Now, how many of us have a hope, have a prayer that we've given God and asked for something, and how many of us have waited 25 years for that to come to pass? Now, like I said, no wonder Sarah laughed when at the age of 99, God told her, "You'll have a kid." And it's coming soon this time. But laughing. I waited 25 years. I was 75. Now you're putting a 99-year-old woman through childbirth. Come on. I mean, there's this whole time in between. You waited 25 years for this. Now I'm going to give you a couple more examples because God is always consistent. He does it over and over and over again, and that's the beauty of it. But if we look at the story of Joseph and Joseph and his dreams, there were 20 years between when Joseph's dreams started and when his family finally acknowledged them and bowed before him in the court. David was a teenager. King David was a teenager when he defeated Goliath and was told he would be king. He didn't actually see that come to pass until he was 30s. He was well into his 30s when he became king. And then more than 400 years are between the promise of the Messiah and the arrival of Jesus Christ. So we have quite a leap in time between when God said, there is a Messiah that's coming. They were prophesying there's a Messiah that's coming. It was 400 years of hoping and waiting before Jesus arrived. Now, if we look at from our point of view now, when we were promised the return of Christ, we've been waiting over 2,000 years, yet we still confidently expect Christ to come. Because God does what he says he will do. In Hebrews 6, 11 and 12, a little bit before what I just read, there's a little line here that's about full assurance of hope. And it says, for God is not unjust as to forget your work and the love which you've shown in his name in ministering to the saints and God's people as you do. And we desire for each one of you to show the same diligence all the way through, so as to realize and enjoy the full assurance of hope in the end. Now, when we are faithful to God, such as Abraham, who God told him, I want you to take everything you own and move way away, and he did it. He said, he gave him a very fun adventure about having everybody circumcised, which I wouldn't want to have that, but Abraham did it. And so we have this thing that we have a full assurance of hope because of our reliance on the one we hope in. When we're faithful, when we come back to God again and again and go, God, you still haven't done it. And he says, well, can you do this first? And we go, okay, we do that first. And we go, okay, what about now, God? And he's like, all right, well, I need you to do this first. There's a full assurance in that hope. He is saying, when you are faithful to me, when you trust me, you will have full assurance of hope. Everything that you've prayed for will come to pass. It will, if we just trust in it. Now, I'm going to have a couple of little examples for this because I like, in one of the versions, it says, be imitators of those who came before. Be imitators of those who came before. And the fun part of that is a testimony piece. And I'm going to get into that in a little bit. But the only thing we have to go on of the faithfulness of God is what has come before. So we have these instances like Abraham and Sarah that tells us that even after 25 years, you can have something that you've hoped for. But we also can look at Daniel in the lion's den. Now, and this obviously is kind of a very, kid story. But I don't believe when Daniel was facing King Darius, and King Darius said, I'm going to put you in the lion's den. I don't think Daniel was sitting up there crossing his fingers going, I hope the lions aren't hungry tonight. Right? Because the reason that Daniel was even in this position was because of his faith in God. And he put his hope in the only person who had ever been faithful to him, which was God. That God would take this situation and God would deliver him out of it. And he had, again, if we go back to that beginning of worldly hope, he could have hoped that maybe the lions weren't hungry. He could have hoped that maybe something had happened to the lions. Maybe the pit had caved in. But those are all uncertain things. So he put his faith in the only thing that he knew. And the funny thing is this, is when you read the story of it, King Darius is actually the one that says, may your God, whom you serve, continually save you. He's saying, the one that you talk about all the time, I hope he saves you. And this isn't even somebody in the situation. This is the king going, I hope that works. And again, another example, if we look at Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fire. They didn't make a wish hoping the fire had blown out. They didn't stand there going, I really wish on a star that the fire would burn out or it wouldn't be hot, or maybe Nebuchadnezzar would change his mind. No. The only thing that they said is, our God is able to deliver. That's what they told the king. When he said, are you sure you want to go? Our God is able to deliver. Their hope was in something beyond an earthly thing. And I'm sure my last example here, I love it, is Moses and when the Exodus happened. And I can just imagine, and I think it's because I've seen way too many like kids stories of going up, and you know how you put your hand over something and go, what's going to do? And I can just imagine the Lord going, raise your staff. And he's going, I hope this water dries up. I hope a fleet of boats arrives. But no, he raises a staff and he puts his hope in the only thing that is real to deliver. And God delivers. So we have a full assurance of hope. Later on in Hebrews 10:23, it says, let us hold fast to the confession of our hope without wavering, for he who promised is faithful. We've been reminded so many times through stories through the Bible of that if we have hope in the Lord, he will work all things out for good. And unlike worldly hope, biblical hope will never fail us. Never fail us. Now, there's a couple of pieces here because in the world that we live in, we like to try, because we are humans and we have free will, we like to kind of dabble in both sides, right? So we like to try and put worldly restraints on biblical hope. So we try and give God a box to work within. Now, if we say that, society now is hoping on worldly things, and a lot of that stuff is misplaced for faith. Like, I could sit there and I could pray to God and go, God, I hope you give me a job that makes me happy. I hope my boss gives me a pay rise. I hope my partner still loves me. So we have, again, we put our faith in things that were never meant to hold it. I see you two laughing back there. I'm sure you both still love each other, just like Fiona and Terry do, I'm sure. But we put worldly restraints on biblical hopes. Now, in my personal situation right now, I hope God provides me with a reliable car, all right? But I'm having a caveat to that because I'd like a Bugatti, or maybe an Aston Martin, or, maybe like a nice Merc G-Wagon. It's always been my dream car. So I'm hoping that God gives me a reliable car, but I'd like it to be in this classification, right? So we're kind of dabbling in both sides, this worldly hope and the biblical hope. We're putting our faith in God, but we're going, this is how I'd like you to deliver it, right? Now, Sarah and Abraham, when we go back to their story, they tried to do the same thing. Because when they're in this 25 years of waiting, they came and they're like, how do we figure this out on our own? God said we're going to have a kid. So Sarah comes up with a great idea. God promised us a kid. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you my servant, Hagar. She can have your baby, and we won't have to wait on it. And I can imagine her too sitting there going, I can only imagine Hagar's much younger. She's certainly probably not in her 80s at this point. And I'm sure Sarah was going, this is a way for this oath and promise to come true, but I'm putting my worldly condition on it. So I'm going around what God's doing, and it's going to come true, but just in the way I wanted it to come true. And the beautiful thing is about God, because God is the way he is, God is like, okay, I'll let you do that, but you're still going to have a kid. I'm glad you tried. Well done. Ishmael's fine. But you're going to have a son, and he will be the father of descendants. You will be the father of all the descendants. And so we have promises that cannot be manipulated by our worldly desires. And the other part is we cannot manipulate them with our worldly timelines either. I can't say, God, I hope that you give me a car this afternoon. I put the faith in you, God. I'm going to walk out the door and see if it's out there. Because God does not work on our timelines. He does it when he does it. Now, if I walk out there that door and there's a new car for me, y'all hear about it, I'm sure. But God does not work within our worldly timelines. And sometimes those things that come through are things that we have to patiently wait for. And we cannot give up on our biblical hope. If we put something out there to God and we go, God, I hope you can take care of this, we don't get to take it back and go, you didn't deal with it the right way. I wanted it now. You also can't take it back and say, you didn't do it how I wanted it done. Because there's a lot of times we hope for things that don't go the way exactly we planned them to go. There's times that we hope for things. Like we hope for better hips and better knees. And we wait on them, and we wait on them, and we wait on them. But it's what we do in that time in between with it. And there's times that we hope that God will save somebody's life. And he doesn't do it. However, there's a piece there that God has answered. And that's a conversation that we need to have with God, because we need to be real with him when we pray for things and we hope for things. We confidently expect it to happen. But when it does, there is a reason if it does not happen. If it doesn't go the way we planned, there is a reason. And God will reveal that to us. And sometimes it's things we don't want to hear. It's some things we just want to ignore and go, God, I hope for that, and it didn't come out the way I did it. You didn't do it in the box that I gave you. What's wrong? And he goes, let me show you the bigger picture of all of this. Because what you may have hoped for is something that doesn't suit what needs to happen. I could hope for a Bugatti, but I'd like to see me try and put a bench from the shed in the back of a Bugatti. Not going to fit. What my life suits and how I serve the Lord doesn't fit with that box that I gave him. He will provide me. I have full faith he will provide a vehicle for me. But it will be one that serves his kingdom as well. That will fit his purpose. That will fit his use. It will be a service to somebody other than myself. There will be something outside of that. And that's when we're going to get into our living hope. Now, I know I had to play the song earlier, but it's true. It's true. So we're going to look at Peter, and this is what originally inspired this whole thing, was the first letter of Peter, in his chapter 1. And just to start off this chapter, Peter wrote this to the church, and it's a message of comfort and hope and encouragement for the exiles. And what he means by the exiles is Christians that are living among non-Christians. Believers that are living in a world surrounded by unbelievers. Those that are set apart from other people. Those that are away from their families. Things like that. And he asks them to hold fast in the faith in the midst of coming persecution. Now, if I don't reflect that on the world that is now, that we are living in now, I can't get it any closer. We are foreigners. Believers are foreigners in this world. And as we know, it's coming more and more that we are being persecuted and held under. And this is where this is coming to, because we are getting a living hope. So as those that he is speaking to exile and those dispersed within a foreign place, 1 Peter 3:9 is going to give us a first little hope. And it says, and I'm going to read this again from the Amplified Version, so there's some extra bits in there that I think just add a little bit. But it said, "Blessed, gratefully praised and adored be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who according to his abundant and boundless mercy has caused us to be born again. That is, to be reborn from above, spiritually transformed, renewed, and set apart for his purpose, to an ever-living hope and confident assurance through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead." We are born and set apart to an ever-living hope and confident assurance through Jesus Christ. So like I said earlier, we've been waiting since, they waited 400 years before Christ arrived to our actual living, literal living hope that we have. Now, that's what they got after those 400 years we got Jesus Christ. We have the Savior. He is our hope. He is who we put our hope in now. And from there, we can only move forward. And it says, this is our testimony. He continues, he says, this is our testimony, that we are born into an inheritance which is imperishable, beyond the reach of change, and undefiled and unfading, reserved in heaven for you, who are being protected and shielded by the power of God through your faith for salvation, that is ready to be revealed for you in the last time. So it's coming. This is a promise of what is coming. In this you greatly rejoice, even though now, for a little while, if necessary, you have been distressed by various trials. So we have a hope of what's to come. We have a hope of Christ's return. And even though right now it feels like everything is kind of chaotic in the world, we may be distressed by various trials. But it's coming. It's coming. And it continues on, so that the genuineness of your faith, which is much more precious than gold, which is perishable, even though tested and purified by fire, may be found to result in your praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Though you have not seen him, you love him. And though you do not even see him now, you believe and trust in him, and you greatly rejoice and delight with inexpressible and glorious joy, receiving as the result the outcome of your faith and salvation of your souls. So when we are faithful, like we were talking earlier, God's promises will always come to pass. And what Peter is saying here to the exiles, your hard work, this stuff that you're going through, is not in vain. Keep pushing forward. Keep hoping in that living hope that is Jesus Christ. And then it says, continues on in verse 10, regarding the salvation, the prophets who prophesied about the grace of God, that was intended for you. Every story that we read in the Bible is meant to be a prophecy of what God's promises are in our life. The things that God is capable of, the things that he is able to do. So he's saying, remember this, you have a whole book of stuff to get you through your 25 years of waiting. See, the thing I find interesting is Abraham didn't have that. He's living in a day-to-day. We have a whole bunch of stuff that gives us examples of how God has been faithful over and over and over again. And I can't imagine what it would be like to be Sarah and Abraham and not have this solid history of who God is. But you have a full trust that he's got it taken care of. And I'm going to kind of continue here where it says, so of what God intended was for you. He searched carefully and inquired about the future way of salvation, seeking to find out what a person or what time the Spirit of Christ within them was indicating as he foretold the sufferings of Christ and the glories destined to follow. It was revealed to them that their services, their prophecies regarding grace, were not meant for themselves and their time, but for you. In these things, the death, resurrection, and glorification of Jesus Christ, which have now been told to you by those who have preached the gospel to you by the power of the Holy Spirit, who was sent from heaven. Into these things, even the angels long to look. The things that have come before are nothing compared to the return of Christ and what that looks like for us. And when we were given that living hope, we were giving a living example. And what it's saying is, at this time, I don't think by Abraham and Sarah going through what they went through, did they ever think that their story would be told so many years later. I don't think any of them going through this moment is going to go, I'm going to go into the lion's den because in a whole lot of years, they're going to talk about me. None of that came through. But they are a light into a dark world. This is a light into a dark world. And so it gives us a warning about how we are supposed to be a living hope as well. God is a living hope unto us, and we are a living hope in this world that we live in. Because we are called to be salt and light. In Matthew 5:14, it says, "You are the light of the world, a city on a hill that cannot be hidden." Don't hide your light and let your light shine before others. Christ came to fulfill the law and the prophets from before. He came to tell us that this is what's going to happen. I promise it's coming. And then Christ also came to confirm every testimony of God's promises and God's work. He promised this is what will happen, and Christ fulfilled it. Christ is the living promise fulfilled. And Christ was confidently expected for 400 years. And he arrived. And all I can say now is that we need to be a light in the world that we live in. A candle of hope in a season that is literally getting darker. As Christians, we are called to be a living hope to other people. To show that what we've been hoping for, we're willing to wait for. We know it's coming. Because how do we give hope to anybody else in this season if we can't have hope in the one person that we should have hope in? So I just would encourage all of you to, as we go through the Christmas season now, that we're starting, to have confident expectation of what you ask and hope in God. And to give it your full thought and give it to him. Let him have it. And it says here at the end of 1 Peter, it says, "So prepare your minds for action. Be completely sober in spirit, steadfast, self-disciplined, spiritually and morally alert. Fix your hope completely on the grace of God that is coming to you when Jesus Christ is revealed." We're to keep going and share our faith, share that hope that we have with other people. He is the living hope. And all we can do is just take that light that we got from him and share it around. And in this season when everything feels hopeless, let us come together and share our light with people. Share the love of Christ with other people in a time where it's very hard and in a season that is very dark. So that's all I wanted to share with you guys today. Thank you so very much for being here. I'll let Willie come up and finish us out.